What's up everybody, Megatine here, and hey, we're back, and this is episode 5 of What They Play. Our guest today is Samantha Kalman, and if you've ever wondered what kind of work goes into creating your own video game studio, you're not going to want to miss this interview. There's a lot of really cool information in this video, so I'm going to shut up now and let you go watch the interview. Here is Samantha Kalman. What's up everybody, this is What They Play episode 5. My guest today is the lead developer on Sentris and the founder of Timbre Interactive, Samantha Kalman. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your time.
Yeah, happy to join you. Thanks for having me.
Real quick, the layout of the show it's pretty simple, but we have a few questions about you, some fun questions on the side, and then at the end, I've hand-picked a few fan questions from the Giant Bomb community, the Giant Bomb Reddit and the Giant Bomb Facebook page. They love you, for the record, by the way. They absolutely love you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been a fan of Giant Bomb and part of the community for a while, so feels good to be part of a thing.
Absolutely. Well, the first question is actually just it's kind of the one I like to introduce when we get a guest on the show. I kind of like to open up with this one. But obviously video games have been a huge part of your life. How did they affect you, and how did you end up getting on this road that led you to where you are today? Like, what was the process to getting here?
Yeah, it's a long road, kind of a funny winding road, if you will. I loved games as a kid. Had a friend in first grade who had an NES, so played Super Mario Brothers at his house. Then basically begged my parents for an NES and never got one, but then we got a Super Nintendo. Just was playing games as much as possible, like whenever I could. I wanted to play games instead of playing outside. I was one of those weird introverted kids. I think I was playing Final Fantasy 6 or 3, and I was I had this moment after one of the boss battles when you return to Narsh, and there's like the 3-party battle with Kefka for the Esper. It was so cool. After that battle was over, like I had this like come down, like this emotional rush during the battle, and then sort of a fallout after. And I was like, I would love to make these. Reading the story and hearing about like how it wasn't over yet it was this huge cinematic climactic battle, and there was still like so much game left. I was like, this is so cool, what's gonna happen? And I would love to do this, but I had this perception of myself that I couldn't, right? Like it just had this idea of like, I'm not very good at math and I don't know how to draw, so I guess I could never make games. And so, I had tried a couple times, right? Like I tried to learn programming and failed. I tried to draw and failed. So in high school and college, I was studying filmmaking, and thought that I would go to LA and be a director. And then, again, winding, very long, overplayed story.
It's okay.
I did all this filmmaking stuff, and that sort of parlayed into actually software testing of all things. So I got into software testing after getting a degree, general arts degree for filmmaking, and then found Unity. Now Unity at the time was like version 1.0. They had just come out of beta, and the company was 3 founders and like maybe 1.5 extra people helping out, and a community of maybe 100 developers, maybe
Wow.
not quite 100. So it was really small, and it was a Mac only tool. So I was using Mac, and I was like, well, I'm just going to try this thing. And just tried it out, and had been learning a little bit of programming through classes at work. And so, but I was learning C# for work, and I was able to use C# in Unity. So just decided to do it. I just did a bunch of it, and I ended up joining the company after I did a bunch of free work for them, where I wrote documentation, and I was making my own games on the side with other people in the community. And then they hired me, moved over there, and helped make that platform for a while until I was like, I could actually do this on my own. Like I could actually make games. I'm going to give it a try. And so I just went for it.
I gotta say, first and foremost, don't ever apologize for a long story about how you became you in the world of games. That's what we're here for. That's what these guys love about the show. They really do, and that's an interesting story. And also, to kind of put that spin on it, it really is like one of those things that you said you weren't good at math or the drawing, and you just did it anyway, though. It's one of those, like, you grit your teeth, you bared it, you did it, and here you are. So that's awesome. That's really great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was definitely, I feel like one of the recurring themes in my life has been this, like, initial feeling of, I'd like to do a thing. How do I do it? I'm going to try. Oh, I suck at this. I can't do it, actually. Like, I'm going to forget about it for a while, just, like, subscribe to the belief that I'm incompetent and incapable of doing it.
Oh,
So,
no.
but then there's always, like, this nagging voice, like, somewhere that's like, you should try again. Like, you should just give it another try. Just try a little harder. And that's kind of been a theme for my life in drawing as well, in programming, in math, in game development, and even, like, I almost feel like the next phase is like a sort of resurgence of filmmaking where I'm like, I really need to get behind the camera again. Like, what the hell? But even, like, I did theater in high school, so I was acting on stage and musical theater and singing and dancing, just shy of tap dancing. But I've been having, now with the PAX wrestling, like, this is so theatrical.
We'll get to
like,
that.
This is like, yeah, that's my theater outlet right now.
Oh, yeah, well, definitely. There's a place for that question. Trust me, it's coming up. As far as creating your own studio, can you give us a little more insight about the complication and hurdles and successes that you've experienced with doing that?
Oh, yes, there's a lot. There's a lot to say. So the first thing I did was when I was like, I need to start a studio, or I want to start a studio, was, how do I do that? So I did a bunch of research about Washington State law and business licenses. There's sort of like a month of, like, weird just research and figuring out what kinds of decisions I would have to make about the company structure.
Right.
Reached out to friends and people in the game development community for advice. And then I had, like, a few $1,000s in savings. I had been working at Amazon, and I knew that I wanted to go independent. So I took my savings. It was basically my life savings, and knew that I had, like, a few months to do something.
That's a scary leap.
It is a scary leap. It's high risk, and that was one of the things to consider. As, like, well, I had to start thinking about how do I spend this money, and how what do I need to spend it on, and what's going to benefit the game, and what's going to enable me to make the game. And so I actually tried to cut my costs as much as possible. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment on Capitol Hill. I moved to a neighboring district, and moved in with housemates. So I cut my rent costs by a lot. I rented a pretty affordable desk at an architect's studio, and that was, like, the cheapest, like, working space that I could find. So it was just, like, cutting costs everywhere,
Right?
And then establishing a routine of, like, forcing myself to get out of bed, forcing myself to get to the office so I was out of the house, and then just working all day, like, banging my head against really weird trigonometry problems, or, like, mesh winding order things. And like sequencer and time management code, and just, like, how do I do this? And it's just so much, like, thinking about the design, like, how should it work? So it was, like, figuring out how to start the business, got all the business licenses and stuff, spent that summer making the game. But then that money that I'd saved up was gone, even though I'd been thrifty. It went a lot faster than I was expecting. So the time came for a Kickstarter. So then it was like, okay, well, if I don't do this, then the company can't survive because there's no income. And the game wasn't ready to make any money. So I did that, and that was an insane month, learning how to, like, campaign and get people excited about a project that existed only in prototype form but was far from finished.
I actually read that. Like, it was either me hearing you say this in a podcast or reading it about you, that the transition that you had from creating to marketing was just like so drastic, and it
Yeah.
was a huge undertaking.
It's like being punched in the stomach when you're spending so much time thinking about like design and code and interactions and richness and user experience, and writing code every day. And then suddenly, okay, don't do any of that. Instead, spend all day writing hundreds of emails and making videos and responding to backer requests and trying to find, like, research new people to tell about the campaign,
Right.
and tweeting way too much, and like it's like it's a shock to the system. It's like jumping into a pool of cold water.
Wow.
And then also when the Kickstarter was over, shifting out of marketing mode and then back into development, it took like a month, just to like feel like I was on my feet again with that stuff.
Wow. Your stories, I can tell you, like, it's full of inspiration, but at the same time, terrifying. I like that moment of like, here's all I have left with the money. Fingers crossed. That's insane, but it's working out, so that's great.
It's doing okay, yeah. It's I don't know. I guess I have friends that read Harry Potter, and I've discovered I've seen most of the movies, not all the movies, but I haven't read the books. And my friends who love the books tell me that I'm House Slytherin, which I guess means I'm super ambitious and like willing to do whatever it takes, and I guess that's just who I am. But to me, it's like I've had like there are things in life that I think are important,
Mm-hmm.
and they are worth fighting for. Literally, well, not literally punching, but like they're worth pushing myself to the limit. And maybe this is a lesson that I learned when I was making music. In Denmark, I was working for Unity, when was playing in this band called Moskauer Bluthund, and playing in that band helped me get over this perceived idea that I couldn't make music, right? So, but we were about to play our first show. We were like 2 weeks away from playing our first show after like a year and a half of practicing. And we had this one rehearsal that was just terrible. It was like miserable. We were totally off. The songs didn't sound right. There was just something wrong at every moment for that entire rehearsal. When I was waiting for the bus, I was so frustrated when I left, and like scared that we were gonna fuck up the show. It's okay to swear.
It's
Sorry.
absolutely okay to swear.
Okay. That's
You're
fucking
not
great.
the first person to ask me that.
So I was afraid we were gonna fuck up the show, and I was so stressed and like disappointed in that day, and I was just standing at the bus stop waiting for the bus, and just like, why does this have to be so hard? I was just like, why is this so hard? And there was this little voice in my head that just appeared, like I'm a crazy person, and that said, if it weren't hard, it wouldn't be worth it.
It's a good thought.
Yeah, and that, I think, they say no pain, no gain, or they say other things about the relationship creatively between pain/sacrifice and an interesting work or accomplishment or achievement. And I don't know how much I subscribe to all those things, but for me, I feel like I have to give it everything. Otherwise, it's not worth doing at all.
Absolutely. That's well put. There's nothing more that I could add to that. That's just perfectly put. So, by the way, I can actually relate to you, not to everything else, but as far as the band goes, I was a lead singer in a band, and I get it. The practice, the dread, the why isn't this working? Like, I get that feeling, and then you just go, just do it. Just go out and do it.
Just do it. Just do it. But I mean, also like with the show that you're hosting, right? Like you put probably a lot of sacrifice into making the show happen, or it's extra work, and but it's worth it to you, so that you're doing it anyway, right?
Until about 3 or 4 in the morning every night, I'm up editing and emailing and doing this, that, and everything that goes along with it. I get 3 hours of sleep. I have to make sure that kids are fed and everything, and then go to work. So all that stuff, the sacrifices and everything, but I wouldn't do this if it wasn't worth it. And I know it's an uphill battle. I get what you're saying. You have to push against the grind all the time.
Yeah. And maybe that aspect of putting your all into it is the thing that makes it feel worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely.
And I honestly believe that creates a magic that that spreads out to other people, and they can, like, the receptors pick up, but they don't necessarily know. They just know it's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. It's like the literal power of creativity.
Awesome. Definitely. We're gonna jump a little bit. First off, what did you play in the band? Can I ask that real quick?
I played a Korg DS10. Do you know what that is?
No, I have no idea what that is.
I'm gonna grab it. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Hang on. No, I'll give you a talk amongst yourselves.
I might do some editing magic here. I'm not sure. Nope, not enough time. I'm just gonna look like an idiot doing this. So. Oh, okay.
On yours? No. Okay. So this is a Korg DS10 for Nintendo DS, and it is, it's a legit synthesizer. It's a freaking cool. It's a cool synthesizer.
That's awesome.
All using the touchscreen, and it has like little virtual knobs you can twist. So I had a couple of DSs with that, and it was hooked into like all these effect pedals. So basically, I just gave myself hundreds of buttons and knobs to play with.
You were a DS DJ. Like, is that where we're at with this? Okay.
Basically, yeah. I mean, there was no Wicca Wicca, but just shy of that.
It's the Wicca Wicca's overrated, so.
I'm glad you think so. I tend to agree.
I was gonna say let's go to the fun questions, but that was fun all by itself. So I'm just gonna straight up ask you this: if there was one game in your history that you could erase from your memory, and just for the sole purpose so you could re-experience it for the first time ever, what would that be?
Yeah. Well, I'm of two minds, because I want to say Rez, because Rez
Really?
has been one of the most influential games for me and my work. But it's also been so influential that if I hadn't played it up until this point, I wouldn't have done all these things, right?
Right.
But I think I'm going to go with it because it's a game that holds up. And it is as incredible of an experience now as it was then. And the way it blended interactivity with music, with sensation, like physical sensation, is still like top tier. Like no one's come close to that yet. And stylistically, it's incredible. I mean, Res VR looks like it was made this year.
It really does.
The game is 15 years old, and that's astounding to me. Timeless. There's something timeless about Res that it just spoke to me like so obviously when I played it, and yeah, just got really, really obsessed with that game. So I would love to play that again for the first time.
That's a great answer. It's a very unique answer too, though you risked it all by answering it that way because it shaped you who you are. So
yeah, but Sentris wouldn't exist without Rez.
Right, definitely.
That's actually true.
I have to ask you, just now that we have 2 of the 3 major headsets out, what are your impressions on consumer version VR as of this point? You do carry a Gear VR with you like everywhere, right?
I'm a fan of Gear VR. I like that I can have it in my bag and just sort of pull it out anywhere. But I also recognize that I like to work. I like to sort of travel around while I work as well. So it's part of a mobile office. And I like the benefits of people like being able to sit like in the airplane or a train and watch a movie or play a game. I'm really interested in like local multiplayer mobile VR, where like people are pulling out headsets together and then playing a game together. But you know, I'm also pretty impressed with everything. My history with VR began when I tried this the Oculus DK1, and I was so like excited to try it that when I tried it, I was actually disappointed.
Oh, like, why?
Well, the DK1 was, to me, I'm picky like about my experiences, about quality and stuff like that, and it was a cool thing, but it just was like, the quality wasn't there for me.
Right.
Or
The screen
like
door effect and the resolution wasn't there. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, so I sort of was like, well, that's too bad. And then I tried the DK2 thinking that they'd fixed it, and it wasn't improved in the ways that were important to me. So after that, I actually wrote off VR as like not a thing. But then I got to try the pre-Vive prototype. Valve has, they had the room scale demo
Right.
where they had this room dedicated to the demo that was covered in QR codes, and you can walk around. So it had this weird kind of custom headset that had this like big lip kind of thing in front of it. Looked super weird.
Which game did you play?
They had a series of demos.
Okay.
Most of them were super, super simple, just like sitting in a space, looking around, moving around. But only one of them had anything that even had animation.
Okay.
Two of them had animation. And so that was kind of like a religious experience. The only reason I tried it was because everyone that had tried it was telling me that I needed to try it out. That it was incredible, and at this point I was like, whatever, like I've tried these headsets, whatever. And I put that thing on, I was like, oh, wow. So the Vive and the creative process that brought us the consumer Vive was the thing that made me a believer in VR. And I've since tried the Rift, which is amazing, and even PlayStation VR is amazing, and so I want to be clear that like I like all the platforms, and I think they're all really interesting in their own ways. They're all slightly different, you know. The Rift is great for a seated VR experience. PSVR is great for like the more entry level like console owner VR, and the Vive is like as this. If you're interested in getting a Vive, that means you're also interested in making space in your home for VR and walking around. And so that's like a big commitment, and so that's also a kind of special, one of a kind experience right now. And like with gear you just take with you. So like they're all cool in different ways. And I always have to remind myself that when I put on, have you tried Gear VR?
I haven't tried Gear VR. I have a DK2 beside of me, but I'm currently I record in a basement, which has a lot of open space. So I think that the Vive is going to be my next step up, but I have not tried the Gear VR yet.
Okay. So every time the Gear VR is a good experience. It's a high quality VR platform, and every time I put it on, and my lizard brain just sort of flips into accepting that I'm in the virtual world, I have to consciously remind myself that I'm staring at a phone screen, and it's tricking me into like transporting myself, and that's really incredible that technology has brought us to this point. It still blows my mind on a pretty regular basis.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Like I believe the immersion. Like even on the DK2, I play things like on the channel. I play things like Dread Halls and oh, there's some other hard ones that I'm forgetting, but those games get me and they terrify me. The genuine reactions that I have, like I do have to sit there and go, "Oh yeah, no, this is cool. We're not there," and it can do that to you. And that's what is the term for that? I forget. It's not immersion, but it's present. Yeah, that's it. And it when it really hits you, you can't describe that experience. It's really crazy.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about it, is you're trying to explain to someone why this experience you had was so cool, and you're like, and there's like a thing floating right there, and then I touched it and it moved, and people listening are like, what? Like, what's cool about that? And you're like, no, you don't get it. So it's pretty phenomenal. And I think it really was that sense of presence that I was hoping for that didn't see in the development kits. But the presence is strong in this generation.
That I also noticed and of course people are going to pick VR apart for everything it's worth, but one of my favorite things to do is when I have people try it, is just watch them and see if they have that jaw open mouth syndrome where they're...
It's the VR face.
Everybody get the VR face. It's an amazing thing. Yeah, or like, and 9 times out of 10, somebody has to scratch their nose too. It's weird, but whatever. Okay, where are we at here? I wanted to ask you, just tell me about PAX Wrestling. I'm a fan, okay? I'm a legit fan of this burning trash can fire of a show that is an amazing act of just the collaboration. It's amazing, and they admit it. You guys admit it that it's a cluster. But it's a beautiful cluster.
It's the biggest shit show I've ever been a part of, but it's also the most beautiful shit show, and I love it dearly.
And somehow you got Xavier Woods involved, or at least Dan did, and I don't understand that, but...
Well, I think we all love wrestling, right? Like, so Eric Pope and Aaron Schreitz started it while they were both working at Harmonix, and I knew them because music game friends, and they asked me randomly if I wanted to be on this dumb wrestling thing. They're like, do you even know what wrestling is? And I was like, you guys, like, I watched that shit. And I played so much WCW and WO Revenge. I remember my friends getting pissed off and refusing to play with me anymore. And so when I found out that they were doing this panel with all the Royal Rumble mode, I was like, yeah, yes, this is I can't say no to this. And then just showed up and had no idea what was going to happen, and then things started to happen, and then it was me versus Alex, and then he got the belt.
Do you have any words for Alex right now? Just cut a promo for me.
Wolf, I tell you what, you were a good champion. You reigned for a long time. You pulled some dastardly tricks on your fellow wrestlers, but you know what? I have a lot of forgiveness in my heart, even though clearly we've established who is the superior video game wrestler in this league. You know, it would be a shame if we never saw the Wolf ever again. So if you want to be one of my cohorts, if you want to be in my posse, you just let me know. We'll talk about it, all right?
Strong words from Samantha Kalman.
Champion, Samantha. Champion.
My apologies, Samantha, the champion Kalman. Okay, I got you. With that said, we'll jump off of this. I just want to ask you one more quick question about PAX Wrestling. Is Dr. Tracksuit still a threat?
You know, the last I heard of Dr. Tracksuit, he was like somewhere in Colombia.
That's what I hear.
He was meeting up with some colleagues, is what I heard kind of through the grapevine. But I don't know. Like he took right off after we took him down with the power of love. You know, it seemed like it was too much for him to handle. So we'll see. I don't know what to think about that guy. He seems like kind of a wild card, kind of a loose cannon. You know what I mean?
For the record, that was the most requested fan question it was all about PAX Wrestling for the most part, and then Dr. Tracksuit came up like 40 times. I was like, I'll just ask it and get it out there.
You know, Dr. Tracksuit's manager, Jeff Gersman, is a solid dude, and if anyone can keep the reins around a crazy psychopath like Dr. Tracksuit, then it would be Jeff. So
the advocate for Dr. Tracksuit.
I don't know. I mean, hopefully he can like manage her up a little bit more and like maybe get that guy to like I don't know, get his act together. But I wouldn't want that job.
It can only go up from here. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with next. I am going to go ahead and move on to a few fan questions, if that's okay.
Bring it.
I'm going to jump around a little bit on these. I had a set order, but since we're talking about PAX Wrestling, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a question that pertains to that, but also, I'll just ask you. Let's see. FL Style asks, how have you enjoyed and what's your interpretation on the current, I guess, media that surrounds video game journalism? And it's not so much just like, you go back 10 years ago and it was every article, every video, every trailer, it was just so by the book, bullet point, everything. But now you do have things like Giant Bomb. It's just like, let's sit down, let's have a party, let's play some games, and if you like what this guy likes, you'll probably like it. If you don't, then you won't. You know, like, what is your interpretation on that?
Well, I think people really love to be entertained, and games are an expensive hobby. They are a hobby that, I'm going to use a loaded word, but just stick with me through this.
Sure.
They are a hobby that carries with it an inherent level of privilege, right? So to be able to afford games means that you have that level of disposable income and that extra time, and not everyone has that. So
Sure.
So it's a luxury activity, right? And I got a little bit of perspective on that when I was working at Unity, living in Europe, and Xbox games were $120. And that was like, wow, that's a lot more expensive. Turns out Denmark has this luxury tax on items. So, so people love to be entertained, and games are expensive, and people that love games want to play all the games. I know, because I have been one of those people. And it's not feasible, right? Like, this is why piracy is a thing, because people want to play everything. But for people that don't want to pirate and can't afford to play everything and don't have a ton of time, they can just pull up a video, right, and watch someone else play the game, and they can be entertained by the personality of the person playing and their perspective, and they can find someone that, you know, jives with them, or makes them laugh, or gives them whatever they're looking for, you know. And I think that's cool.
And enter the world of Let's Plays too. Like, that is the reason why they exist in the first place. I would imagine so.
Yeah. I don't know sort of how they began, but obviously people like them. I also think that there's a generational aspect to this, where, you know, kids that have grown up with access to internet video their whole lives. Now are just used to it and comfortable with it and seek it out and prefer it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it makes sense for the media around video games to be going in this direction. You know, I think a lot about the role of critical analysis for games these days, because you know, critical analysis is part of what journalism is. And like, I've been watching House of Cards lately, and so there's this journalistic aspect to that, and these people that work at these newspapers, and the way they talk about seeking out stories and information and truth, and the skill sets that they use are you know, these kind of traditionalist, hardcore journalism attributes, or these skills, and those have had an overlap with games for some time, but it seems to me that, well, at least I'm trying to accept that people that really love games, like the mass market audience, they really want entertainment above all else. I think, and so that means that they're not as interested. You know, they're maybe not as interested in how, what's a good example? They're maybe not as interested in how the creators of the Phantom Pain made the levels, right? Or like what kinds of decisions and research they did around weapons and the locations and the Cold War and like all that stuff. To dive into, for a journalist to do that research and then write the story and provide this insight and critical analysis, like, that's journalism. But those kinds of stories are long reading think pieces, and that's not as entertaining as just watching the game being played.
And you can convey a lot more information in a shorter amount of time in a video of it being played with personalities you can relate to as well. So there is, I mean, a lot of developers use that to their advantage now. It's a weird, disgusting, cynical thing that I've seen happening actually with Far Cry Primal. there was a commercial out of someone doing a Let's Play, and it was a commercial for the game. I was just like, they're using Let's Plays in commercials now? So,
Wow.
this is where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of incredible.
It's incredible and really kind of like, and it just blows my mind. I don't know. It just blows my mind to see it.
Yeah. Well, it to me it reveals the nature of, or the role of video games media as part of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, in indie games, there was this transitional period when, the bottom was falling out of Steam, and it was no longer guaranteed sales just to get on Steam anymore. And people were asking about, like, well, how do I generate sales? And everyone was pointing at Let's Players, and because people would watch the streams, then buy the games. And so that sort of spiked, where a lot of game developers, I think, were reaching out to Let's Players, and then a lot of Let's Players were getting, their own fan bases, and probably getting inundated with requests to show games, and they were catching on that their work was generating money for developers, and then they're like, well, we want to be smarter about this too. Like, we want to have a livelihood from this as well, or we want a slice of that pie, and I think that it's reasonable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like marketing, and what I'd love to happen is just more broadly accepted understanding that, like, this is marketing, and like, we want to, having players and having viewers is a good thing, but we're a capitalist country, so, like, everyone's getting paid in the back of their minds at some level, and so if the media has to go where the money is, then that's what they're going to do.
Just you're in your Gear VR, and then you have to pay a premium so you don't have the ads scroll across your vision every 30 seconds or something.
Just wait until these headsets have eye position tracking.
Oh yeah.
And then they can tell that you've closed your eyes and you're not looking at the ad, and then they pause the ad until you open your eyes and it resumes.
Samsung acquired a headset that has that, right? Didn't they just recently purchase a I can't remember the name of it, but I remember reading something about that they acquired a headset company that has that technology, and they're going to start implementing it. So
was it the Fove?
Yes,
Okay.
that was it.
I didn't know that Samsung acquired Fove. I knew about the Fove headset.
I might be wrong. I thought I read that. I may be wrong.
Cool. Yeah, the Fove is the headset that I knew about that has eye tracking. But, like, I don't know. It's a scary kind of proposition. At the same time, like, Crossy Road made a lot of money from, like, allowing people to watch videos and or rewarding them in game for that, and like that.
That's the best example. Like, you just actually brought up the best example of, like, sure, I'll put this down and go get a drink from the fridge and come back and be able to play Crossy Road some more. That's the best example I could think of. Thank you. God, now I got to go play some Crossy Road.
Watch those videos.
One of the questions that I actually had, and this will be the final one. I'm going to try this again. The questions that I had in the About You section and your thoughts and views on things actually came up in the fan questions as well. So I just kind of integrated it into here. It's not credited to anyone, but this one is just, it's from everyone. Let's just say that. What are your opinions on the almost crazy response to there being reiterations of consoles coming out, like a PlayStation 4.5 or an Xbox, I don't know, 1.4, whatever you would call it. What is going to happen from this? I know you can't actually predict that, but I see this going poorly at first.
I don't have a strong opinion about it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of, the Xbox announcement, I'm not really surprised by. People have been talking about, oh, this is going to be the last console generation. No, this is going to be the last console generation. They've been talking about that for a while, and PC computing technology or power has always been just a little bit ahead of consoles in general. So it's like, we've already seen this. The Nintendo DS, the GBA to the DS, where the DS could play GBA games, to the 3DS, which could play DS and 3DS games, and now we have the new 3DS, which plays new 3DS exclusive games plus 3DS plus DS. So if we look at that as a model, then what that means is people can upgrade when they're ready.
How much of that is, to you, how much of that is the fact that, obviously Nintendo being the early adopters of that model, but how much of that is ingrained into our brains and expected from a brand, and also the fact that it's a much more affordable jump from thing to thing opposed to a $400 to $600 console?
Well, the fact that the DS consoles are under $200 is a big deal. I don't know. I mean,
this is a hard question all around.
Know. I mean, to me, excuse me. That you can't. Maybe you can't hear that, but my phone is buzzing in the other room.
Nope.
People have been upgrading their video cards for a while. So I think if we look at it in terms of you're getting an upgrade that, like, if you upgrade your video card, then you can do that a couple of times until you need new RAM, you need new processor, you need new motherboard. So you can get by with like shorter, like spend a little bit of money every year or so, and then like every 4 years, and it's like, oh, you got to spend a lot of money on this.
Right.
And yeah, I think that I think that anyone that's upset should just calm down.
Right.
Because nothing's going away, right? No video games are being taken away from anyone ever in the world about this the Microsoft thing. And,
I wonder if this is going to eventually lead to a road to where, I mean, they are going to kind of split up the console generation a little bit with forcing you to upgrade and so on and so forth. But I wonder if this is going to eventually lead to a place to where all games are made on a PC and ported. We know that. Like, that's just how things work. But if they know they have a for sure install base on computers, I wonder if we'll see that transition back. Because remember, it was there, then it went to consoles, and it could shift back to that. And don't even get me started on like Steam boxes and things like that, because then that's just a whole other wrench in the plans. But I don't know. This will be super interesting to see where this all ends up, and it's going to take years to get there, but people are definitely throwing a fit.
I mean, people react. People are going to react how they're going to react, and the way I look at it is maybe this is a way to have. Maybe this solves the backward compatibility problem, right?
Yeah, there you go.
PS4s can't play PS3 games, and so that feels like that hard line. So, and then the companies have to make all these big decisions about hardware revisions and cost of the console to include hardware from previous generations. So this
opposed to how much they want to resell you those games too.
Yeah, then that's the thing too. Sure. Or sell you for the first time because you didn't get to play it that first time around.
Very true.
I think of this as a blurring of that line, where maybe the next version of the Xbox can play Xbox One games, and maybe the Xbox One can play the games that are compatible with the revised hardware. Right. But maybe there's like some compatibility mode, right? Like maybe the graphics are better on the new revision, but it's still the same game, and it's still like people that can't afford to upgrade can still play all the new stuff. So I think it's a weird, like untrodden territory, like unexplored territory for console games. But I believe that it's going to be better for the consumers in the long run, because this is what all these companies are trying to do, is do what they think is best for the consumer. Yeah.
With that, the one question that popped in my head as we were talking about this, I just literally never thought of it until right now, but with this newer, like, PlayStation 4.5 or whatever they're going to officially call it, now there's a PlayStation VR coming out. Why would a developer ever make anything for the other one when they can obviously have a better experience on an upgraded PlayStation 4? So that's different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any thoughts about that article.
Fair enough.
But I firmly believe that it's going to be a situation where it's compatible both ways, right? Like
Right.
forward compatible and backward compatible. So it's like if you're buying a thing for the new time, if you're buying a thing for the first time, and the new thing is out and you can afford that, then you get that.
Sure.
And or if you're like trying to save on your budget, and the other thing is the older revision is a little bit cheaper or a lot cheaper and pretty much the same, except for maybe like, you know, like the 3DS doesn't have the 3D slider, right, or whatever.
Right.
You know, people. I like to think that people will be informed, or those that they will make informed decisions. And so much of internet discussion is reactionary and shallow and ultimately pointless, because the people that want all the newest, greatest stuff are gonna figure out a way to buy it,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that can't afford it will buy what they can afford. And so, if this move means that a current, what we think of as a current console will be a little bit cheaper or a lot cheaper shortly, then that broadens the consumer base and the player base even more. And that's good for developers,
Sure.
and that's good for content diversity, and that's good for the publishers. It's good for everyone. So, I don't know.
Moral of the story: stop complaining, everyone. Stop it.
Look, I know that people really love to get angry about stuff. But come on, find something worth getting angry about. Like, have you looked at what's happening with the election? Like,
I knew you were going to say that the second you went there. I knew that's what you were going to say.
Jesus, man. Good God. And that stuff really matters. So
yeah, it actually really does.
Maybe I'm just getting older and curmudgeon-y, but I'm like, you damn kids with your video games, like, go look at the. I mean, I get my political news from the Daily Show, so that's my compromise.
Yeah, me, it's John Oliver, so I get you. And I know what we're doing. This is the track we're on. We can't avoid it. It's just a head-on collision with something. We just don't know what the something is yet.
As long as it's not a meteor, we'll be fine.
Is there anything that you would like to plug that you are working on? Anything that you would like to say to the community? Now is your forum.
Gosh, thank you for watching. If you have been watching this because you know my work and follow it, thank you so much. That means the absolute world to me. And if you're a new viewer, then you can check out my website. I have a personal website at samanthakalman.com, and I have a company website at timbreinteractive.com. If you haven't played Sentris, that's on Steam and Humble, so you can check that out. Rest assured that I do have a Patreon. So check out the Patreon if you want to, but I'll let you find that. Rest assured I'm working on things. I'm not announcing anything for the foreseeable future. So these projects take time.
All links that I can find will be below in the information section. I will put as many as I can. If there's any that you think of that you would like me to put there, send them my way. I'm going to give everybody the access that they can to find you, Twitter and all. Thank you again. This has been episode 5 of What They Play with Samantha Kalman. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to say thank you one more time to Samantha Kalman for coming on the show, giving us her time. I know her schedule's busy, so it really does mean a lot. But guys, this is the end of the video, so that means there's just one more thing left to say. You know the drill. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, become one of the Titans, and I'll see you guys in the next video.